On a summer morning in 1948, a well-dressed man was found lying against a seawall as if he'd simply fallen asleep. No wallet, no name, every tag cut from his clothes. And sewn into the lining of his coat, a scrap of paper with two words that investigators still can't fully explain. Tamam Shud. T. It means finished or ended. 75 years later, we still don't know who he was. The date was December 1st, 1948. The place? Somerton Beach, a quiet stretch of coastline just outside Adelaide, Australia. The kind of place locals walked their dogs in the early morning, and nothing much ever happened. That morning, a passerby noticed a man reclining against the sea wall, legs crossed at the ankles, one arm resting on the sand. He looked, by every account, like a man enjoying the sun. Nobody thought twice about it. People napped on that beach all the time. It wasn't until later that evening, when the man hadn't moved even slightly, that someone finally walked over to check on him. He was dead, and no one had any idea who he was. He carried no identification. His pockets held a comb, a box of matches, some chewing gum, an unused bus ticket, and a train ticket, the kind of ordinary items you'd find in anyone's coat. But every single label had been carefully removed from his clothing, not torn off in a hurry, removed deliberately, as though someone had wanted to erase any trace of where he'd come from. That single detail was enough to tell investigators this wasn't an ordinary death. Someone, possibly the man himself, had gone out of his way to make sure that if he was found, he couldn't be traced. The autopsy raised more questions than it answered. The man appeared to be in excellent physical condition, somewhere in his 40s, well-built, with unusually developed calf muscles that one examiner would later associate with a specific kind of manual work or athletic training. His organs showed signs consistent with poisoning, but no traces of any known poison were ever found in his system. Whatever had killed him, it didn't match anything in the standard toxicology reference books of the time. Police released his photograph. No one came forward. They circulated his description across the country. Still nothing. Weeks passed, and then a detail emerged that would come to define the entire case. A small, neatly torn scrap of paper was discovered tucked into a hidden fob pocket sewn inside the man's trousers. A pocket so obscure that investigators had missed it during the initial examination. Printed on the scrap were two words in an elegant, unfamiliar script, Tamam Shud. Detectives eventually traced the phrase to the final page of a rare book of Persian poetry, Tamam Shud, a collection of verses about mortality, fate, and letting go. The words themselves translate roughly to "it is ended" or "finished," traditionally printed at the close of the book, marking the final page. But what happened next would puzzle investigators for decades. Police put out a public appeal, asking whether anyone owned a copy of that exact book, missing its final page. A man came forward. He'd found a copy, thrown, unlocked into the back seat of his unlocked car, parked near the beach around the time of the death. The final page had been torn out. It matched. And tucked inside the back cover of that book, investigators found something else, a phone number written in pencil, along with a short block of capital letters that appeared to be some kind of code. The phone number led police to a woman who lived not far from the beach, a nurse. When questioned, she denied knowing the dead man, though several investigators who were present later described her reaction as visibly uneasy. She was never formally implicated in anything. She kept her account of events for the rest of her life and took most of what she knew to her grave. The code, meanwhile, has never been definitively solved. Cryptographers, hobbyists, and amateur codebreakers have spent 75 years proposing solutions. None of the proposed solutions have ever been proven, and several respected cryptographers have concluded it may not be solvable at all. Theories about the man's identity multiplied over the decades. Because it was 1948 and Cold War tensions were rising fast, one persistent theory held that he was a spy. The poisoning that left no trace, the missing labels, the coded note, all pointing toward espionage. Adelaide sat near sensitive weapons testing sites at the time. Others were convinced it was simpler and sadder, a case of heartbreak. The poetry book, the theory goes, points to a man who saw himself in those verses about endings and impermanence, and who took his own life in a quiet, almost theatrical way. For decades, neither theory could be confirmed. The body was buried in an unmarked grave. For over 70 years, that's where the case stood. Frozen. Then, in 2022, using DNA extracted from strands of hair, researchers finally got a name: Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer born in Melbourne in 1905. It should have been the ending, but it wasn't, because knowing his name didn't answer the question that had haunted the case from the very beginning. Why had every label been removed from his clothes? Why the hidden poetry, the code, the untraceable poison? Giving the Somerton Man a name didn't close the case. We now know who he was. We may never know why he ended up on that beach, or what those pencil-written letters in the back of a book of poetry were really trying to say. Maybe that's fitting, in a strange way. The book that started it all was about endings, about the peace of simply being finished. Perhaps Charles Webb chose those words for exactly that reason. Either way, 75 years later, the coat with no labels, the untraceable poison, and the code no one has ever cracked remain exactly where he left them, unresolved. If you'd like us to keep digging into the cases the world has never fully closed, subscribe to The Quiet Records. We're back with the next file soon.